Pan-Africanism is about the oneness of humanity, not just about Africa, but for all of us. We cannot talk about peace at whatever level if there is no unity, if there is no oneness, if there is no brotherhood. So what we are here to do today, and we are glad that you're going to help us realize that. And as the MC said, that we hope that whatever it is that you're going to say and you're going to do doesn't remain in this room, or we don't go back with it as scholars and it remains as part of our seminar presentations, that it will have an impact beyond the 3 days that we will be here. It's about harnessing the strengths, our common heritage and values, so that for the betterment of humanity, for both Africans and non-Africans. And that is what excites me about this, that we are here to talk about, deliberate, to dialogue about how we can rise above our biases, whether it is about race, whether it is about ethnicity, whether it is about gender, in search of that unity and oneness that we need for there to be sustainable peace in the universe, in Africa, and everywhere. So thank you so much for being here. And as part of AFPREA, I promise that we will have an exciting time. I mean, it will not be in vain that you made time to be here. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jacinta. What my colleague meant to ask about the mic, this mic is for the camera, it's not for hearing. So we will ask the subsequent speakers to speak a bit louder because we are not using, so for people in the back. There's a lot of old people here, so this is not meant as an attack, it's an appreciation.
For elders, like MC.
Next, we will invite Dr. George Mutelemwa, who is the Director of Africa Peace and Development Network, MAMA, and Executive Secretary of the Association of Catholic Universities and Higher Institutes of Africa and Madagascar. Welcome, Dr.
Thank you very much indeed. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
So nice to see you. Welcome to TCDC and welcome to this conference. It's my pleasure really meeting you. We've been exchanging some emails and phone calls for some time. So I'm glad to be able to see you in person. So this really delights me quite a lot. As I was introduced, I'm a lecturer in development studies at St. Augustine University of Tanzania. And in 2017, I was elected Executive Secretary of the Association of Catholic Universities and Higher Institutes of Africa and Madagascar. And I was elected Secretary during the General Assembly of the Vice Chancellors of Catholic Universities in Africa, who formed this association called AFPREA. Now, during that General Assembly, the Vice Chancellors passed a resolution that all universities, Catholic universities, should have a department of peace studies, or at least they should mainstream peace studies across all departments. Now it came a time to try to implement that, and we are still working on that. Mm-hmm. So in this process, first of all, I should admit that I'm a newcomer in peace studies. I studied development studies, only touched upon peace studies. But since I was given this responsibility to see to it that we mainstream peace studies, I had to contact some of the people that I knew could assist me. And so we formed actually an international network to be able to deal with that. And we set up in about 2 years ago a network called the Africa Peace and Development Network, MAMA, which comes from the Swahili words Mtandao wa Amani na Maendeleo Afrika. And so far, we have organized 117 webinars, which we do every Wednesday, except on some public holidays like Christmas or New Year, etc. We have also published a couple of books. One of them, Peace Studies for Sustainable Development in Africa, and Peace as Non-Violence. So it's really my pleasure once again to be here with you, and I hope that we'll exchange more ideas and contacts as we grow and develop our peace-building network. Thank you very much indeed.
I like how things are moving. The summaries are really good. Huh? So next we will have Dr. Moses Monde John. Dr. Moses, PhD, is a civil society activist, research and associate lecturer of conflict management at Graduate School of Public Service, University of Juba, South Sudan. He is the convener of the Pan-African Nonviolence and Peace-Building Network, PANPEN. Welcome, Dr. John.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I am honored on behalf of the Pan-African Nonviolence and Peacebuilding Network, PANPEN, to address this humble conference on behalf of my colleagues and the network. If you are looking for a network of networks in Africa that enjoys rich diversity of membership, including civil society, faith-based groups, academia, then PANPEN is a place for you. And so I would like really to start with introducing what PANPEN is all about. As I have said, it is a network of networks because as individual members, there are networks from across Africa. It was actually, the idea of the network was born on the 30th of July, 2012, and it was reorganized in 2014 in South Africa in a meeting held in Cape Town in South Africa. And that was the day that the network was officially actually launched. PANPEN connects, inspires, and empowers African civil society, grassroots peace movement activists, and academia to take nonviolent actions in order to transform conflicts, promote peace, and consolidate democracy in their various countries. The network comprises of over 70 organizations representing over 40 countries in the region. As I've said, the network enjoys that diversity because as we know, in order for us to make peace happen, we really have to address or contribute in making peace as individuals, but also as groups that have special interests. And therefore, PANPEN connects the practitioners with the academics, because not every activist can write. Actually, we have activists who are not actually interested in writing. They are interested in taking actions. They are frontline activists. And by having academia together, working together, then the academics, they will be able to document those stories. Because one of the challenges we have in the region is writing about our stories. Mm. And if we don't write about our stories, it means others will write those stories on our behalf. And we all know that if you don't write your story, you might not own the narrative. Because writers, they write their stories to fit their narratives. And that's what we actually try to bridge. And therefore, we try to encourage activists to also write their stories and also encourage academia to interact with the activists so that the academic writings can actually be improved. And that's actually the advantage that PEN tries to bridge. Most importantly, it must be noted that PEN was founded on the basis of African philosophy and the spirit of Ubuntu and Pan-Africanism. As they are important foundations for our African understanding of African response to African problems, particularly wars and the challenges that are being faced in Africa. The spirit of Ubuntuism has largely contributed in shaping the behavior of African people and it is interaction with the world, with the surroundings. It means that we are humans because we belong to each other. And therefore, humanity and peaceful way of living is actually part of our culture in the region. And that culture has also been abused during the colonial period because Africans are seen being peaceful, being accommodative. They were actually abused. And because of that, Africans were first to realize that during colonial periods, because they felt that their goodness and being peaceful is being abused, then they started developing resistance against the colonial systems. And therefore, we have seen that in different parts of Africa, the people have actually resisted colonial masters by using non-violent actions, which includes strikes, boycott, sabotage, and other forms of economic and political non-cooperation, which actually resisted colonization and led to victory in many countries. For example, in my hometown in South Sudan, a chief decided actually to resist a district commissioner who was by then from England by simply undermining his authority. When the district commissioner was going to the office, because people believe that when the commissioner comes, he should leave the way for the commissioner to pass. So he decided to take his goats around that time when the commissioner goes to office. And then he went with the goats and the sheep, and the goats actually blocked the road. And then he went and hid behind a tree. And the commissioner was pissed off and he was asking, whose goats are these? And then he came out and said, well, it's mine actually. I know you are a commissioner, you are coming, that's why I left the road for you. But these are goats, they don't know you are a commissioner. And that's why they are still hanging around, you see? So that was a simple action that actually is to undermine your authority. And the same chief was able to protest against the same district commissioner when he forced the people to work for free for the colonial masters. And so this kind of simple resistance is very important, and we believe that through PEN, we will be able to document some of these stories and make it our own narratives. To conclude with, over the years, PEN has contributed in documenting its stories in published books. We also met in South Africa. We met in Juba as recently as in 2022. We shared our stories and we tried to strategize on how best we can connect and support each other. PEN also continued to support its partners, particularly in Sudan, given the difficult situation. We actually tried our best to make sure that our colleagues in Sudan should also attend this meeting, but because of logistical constraints, it was extremely difficult. We continue to support and coordinate with networks, not only in Africa, but also like surpass in Latin America. We believe that Africa should have an open mind to learn from the world, to learn from the context, particularly like in Latin America, the global South at large, we have a lot to share together. And therefore, through this conference, we believe we will be able to complement each other, particularly between the practitioners and the academics, so that we can together support each other in order to move forward. We are very happy that we have colleagues from the African coaches who actually work together in order to develop trainers for nonviolence. And as PEN, we have actually good number of trainers who can offer trainings in different countries. Just let us know, and we'll be able to do that even at no cost. Okay, and that's one thing that we are happy to do, because we believe training is not a prerequisite for what we are doing as activists, but it is extremely important in order for us to maneuver and navigate our ways to success using the campaigning that we are having. And with these few words, I look forward to having a very fruitful conversation during this conference. And please, if you want to know more about PEN, I am around, and please let us talk, and we will be able to support each other. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Moses. There's some tea and snacks outside. So as we progress, you can also increase your energy levels. Or if you are not in the mood for that, there is drinking water behind that window, the window I'm pointing at, and the drinking glasses are in a cupboard below the dispenser. We've come to the end of that opening session. That is the welcome notes. And at this point, we are moving to the opening remarks, and I'll invite Matt Meyer to give us the opening remarks. And Matt Meyer is an internationally noted historian, an orator, and an organizer who serves as Secretary General of the International Peace Research Association, the world's leading consortium of university-based professors, scholars, students, and community leaders. Meyer is a senior research scholar of the University of Massachusetts. Of the University of Massachusetts, Amherst's Resistance Studies Initiative, and is active with the International Fellowship of Reconciliation and the War Resisters International. Matt is also the author and editor of over a dozen books. His work focuses on African peace studies, 21st century decolonization, the strategies and tactics of movement building, and political prisoners, and the abolition of white supremacy. South African Nobel Peace Laureate Archbishop Desmond Tutu, in his introduction to Matt's first book, which is titled Guns and Gandhi in Africa, which he co-authored with Pan-Africanist Bill Sutherland, noted that they have looked beyond the short-term strategies and tactics, which too often divide progressive people, and that they have begun to develop a language which looks at the roots of our humanness. Karibu sana, Matt.
Thank you, sir. I would like to start with the respected African tradition of asking the elders for permission to speak. Right. Especially since some of the elders are greeting us next, I want their permission because they have to wait, and you have to wait just another few minutes before you hear from them. There's something about the land there's something about the land. It's impossible, I think, to come here, whether you've been here once, whether you've lived here all your life, or whether you're just flying in or driving in, with Kilimanjaro over here and Meru over there, to not feel something about the land. Coming into Arusha, this global city, this city of tourism where people have come in to go on safari and see African animals, but also this city of profound peace building, of people to people work and solidarity. There is something about the land, and it's hard for me to come up here as this pudgy white boy from New York City and say what I'm supposed to say as the Secretary General of the International Peace Research Association, a nice title for a great organization that my brother Charles and others have spoke to, and not just say officially, we greet you, we thank you, we welcome you, but to say something more personal. And we know the personal is political. And we know right now, as the struggles intensify on all fronts, in every corner of the world, the struggle is getting very personal indeed. And our need to intensify the struggle needs to be equally sharpened on the personal and political level. So what I'll say is that I came here to this part of the world, this part of Tanzania, once before. It was 30 years ago. I was younger. I was flying here with the person who at the time was my mentor, who then became my co-author in the book that these guys cited, and then some years later, to my surprise, became my stepfather. It was a joyous transformation over decades of my life. And so when we honor the ancestors, as some of us did yesterday at a ceremony at UAACC, I have to bring into the room MZ Bill Sutherland, who was my papa. And as Bill and I took a short flight from, well, it wasn't seeming short, but apparently it's a short flight from Dar es Salaam to Butiama to sit for me to sit at the footsteps, for Bill, he was a friend and colleague of Mwalimu, Julius Nyerere. We were met as the plane landed by Joseph Butiku, who escorted us to Mwalimu's home. And we had some time where we did some of the interviews and conversations that ended up in our book, Lands in Gandhi in Africa. There's no greater joy. I most fall down when I learn these things. My young comrades here told me about this book, What is Pan-Africanism, by Professor Shivji, an essay by Professor Shivji, who you'll hear from in a minute, that quotes from our book. And of course, it was Bill who had built these relationships over decades. But it's not just to talk about the personal and the way my heart is moved being here and seeing this land and seeing these people. It's about the historic tradition. Because Bill, as an African-American born in the US, who moved to Africa in 1953 to Gold Coast, what was then Gold Coast and Ghana, and then moved to Tanzania, to Dar es Salaam some years later, it is part of a continuity that we take up today. It is a diverse continuity because there's not one group of people, African Americans or Black folk or New Africans, but it is about the land and a relationship of people to the land and to one another. So when Bill and I came here and we first had a time with, I want to note him as well, Alexander Ngiwi Irenda, the gentleman who climbed top of Kilimanjaro and put the Tanzanian flag after independence. It was about that continuity. It was about the continuity when Bill became the chauffeur and guide about Dar es Salaam of El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, Minister Malcolm X. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Malcolm, in '64, visiting Tanzania, did not live more than another year. Because the connections between the movement of Black liberation in the US, the movement of Islam internationally, the diverse movements connecting with Mwalimu, and the burgeoning radical movements here could not be accepted by the powers that be. It was a political thing, but it's a political thing that's very personal. When my brother Jihad Abdul Mumit, who's here, who you'll hear more from later today, when we buried our brother Baba Sekou Odinga less than a year ago, and then met last night with Pete O'Neill, who with Mama Charlotte runs United African Alliance Community Center. They too, of course, are part of that continuity. And it was hard not to think about the Black Panther International that Sekou and Pete built together in Algeria. And Sekou, one of his favorite phrases, one of the most important things he talked about, when he talked about the question of liberation, about Pan-Africanism, was what about power? What do you mean by power? And of course, from a power perspective, the phrase free the land became the center point, because the understanding of the land and the people and the animals and the earth and the environment around us was and is and always has been central. So the fact that here today we have Sata Jawia Hall and Kali Akuna, we have Jihad Abdul Mumit, we have Egbet Betru, we have a delegation really of people from different groups, diversity, from the Black Liberation Movement in the US, who will be presenting as well. Those historic bridges get built and rebuilt and built for a new era stronger. There was something said earlier about Ujamaa, which I think is important as we look at the theme of this context and the whole days ahead. That Ujamaa was and is generally considered a failure. But when Bill and I spoke to Mwalimu, it was slightly differently phrased, and words are important. Did Ujamaa fail, or was it really never actually tried? It's like Christianity. Good idea at the base concept, but the implementation has left something to be desired. So the point is, what of these ideas and ideals, Ujamaa and Ubuntu, have really been tried? We know some of what Archbishop Tutu meant when he began popularizing the phrase Ubuntu, an historic, ancient, indigenous African wisdom phrase. But when you look at Ubuntu now, the way many are putting it out, it seems like we all just want to hold our hands and sing songs as if there's no struggle whatsoever. In fact, as if it's a substitute for struggle. If that's what Ujamaa is, oh, past history, dead, failure. Ubuntu is, oh, we all sing songs and be happy together. Then we have no idea what these concepts, what these words, what the connection between land and power actually mean. In AFPREA, in AFPREA, in this week together, our job is to go deeper. Our job is to increase the struggle, intensify and deepen our radical roots, increase our connections with one another. That's the personal Ubuntu that we can do, and understand that decolonization, indigeneity and indigenous wisdoms is the center of the agenda. That is why it was top priority at a time when we had no money to make sure we had comrades from still colonized Western Sahara in the room, to have comrades from still colonized Ambazonia, English-speaking Cameroon, in the room. That some of us, though they could not be here, recently visited Somaliland, an unrecognized country that nonetheless has incredible experiments, not successes, but experiments in figuring out what Pan-Africanism in 2024 and 2025 and 2026 can mean. That is our job this week. And so I say, thinking about decolonization, thinking about peace, thinking about a new Pan-Africanism that is in fact not learning from the world, but teaching the world, because the world needs to learn the central concepts of how Africans have historically always made peace. And as you show us that leadership, perhaps we can have peace to the whole world. Thank you.
Asante sana, Matt. And I think we are doing really well in terms of time. The math seems to be mathing. And so at this particular moment in time, we are moving on to the keynote addresses. And I'm really glad and proud to introduce to you an individual who has been a witness of history, a witness of the forward march of the unfinished African liberation struggle. And his name is Joseph Butiku. So Joseph Butiku was Mwalimu Nyerere's personal research assistant, as well as chief of staff and personal envoy. He was then a principal private secretary and chief of staff under President Ali Hassan Mwinyi. He has been a regional party secretary in the Mara region and later became a regional commissioner. Let's put our hands together for Joseph Butiku.
Asante sana. Well, thank you very much. Good morning, habari ya asubuhi. Good afternoon, some of you. I am Joseph Butiku. I think I'll do a few things. First, introduce myself and introduce where I come from now, and a little bit of where I was before, where I come from today, and then say a few things about Ujamaa and Ubuntu. An old man of 86, that's what I am. In Swahili, mzee, not a senior citizen. I don't like that word. I am mzee, an old man, an elderly. And in that capacity, you can say two things. Things about wisdom, which wise things, or you could actually say very stupid things. So I introduce myself that way. When I say stupid things, then you know why. They come from Muzee. A little bit of wisdom because of the experience I've accumulated, maybe more than some of you. A student of Makerere ages ago, 1964, I graduated from Makerere, the only university in Africa. It was University College. Before even Professor Shivji's institution was established at Dar es Salaam. And then 64 to State House to aid President Nyerere at his invitation. He invited me to go there to do a little bit of research and speech writing. And then I ended up actually becoming a Karani. You know, a Karani is a clerk, somebody who takes notes and records what the man says when he's alone with his family or with friends or with the fellow presidents or elders. Then I was the note taker. And I had piles and piles of notes, which I have in my custody somewhere there. I was there for 21 years with him, and therefore with Kaunda, the late Kaunda, the late Mzee Kenyatta, and all these people, Samora Machel, and the rest. Many of them are no longer. Somehow, miraculously, I survived. And then when Mwalimu retired and when Mwinyi retired, I went to the party, a political party called CCM, Chama cha Mapinduzi, which was a child of two parties, a party in Zanzibar called Afro Shirazi Party, and a party in Tanzania called TANU. TANU, which gave birth to struggled and then gave birth to Tanganyika, and then it became CCM, and then it remained CCM until today, when it joined with the Afro Shirazi Party. I was there in that capacity. Then it's when I went to Mara, where you found me there. I did not remember. You have very good memory. I congratulate you, Matt. Thank you very much. Very good memory. Okay, that's the background. But then I went finally I retired 1996, and then Mwalimu brought me back to organize a foundation, to establish and lead a foundation, the Mwalimu Nyerere Foundation. That's where I come from now. I started as executive director, 25 years there, 1997 to 2022. And then chairman now, since 2022, and I can stay. We have a constitution which says I do 5 years, and then I can do another 5 if I want to. I don't think I'll do 5 years. I think I'll do less years. Every time Professor Shivji sees me, say, "Are you still there?" Okay. Now, Mwalimu Nyerere. We talk so much about Mwalimu Nyerere. Let me start with you and ask you a few questions to see if I can try to explain Mwalimu to you. Can you look at your neighbor? Look at your neighbor. Don't ignore my question, it's an important because if you don't look at your neighbor, I'm going to ask you, because I can see all of you. I can like, what did you see? Now, if you have looked at your neighbor, the question is, what did you see?
I saw my brother.
Can you say?
I saw my brother.
He saw his brother.
My brother.
So that's your brother. Next.
Humanity. We are all human.
Yeah, humanity is so humanity.
Yeah.
We are all human.
And gender balance.
And
I've seen sisters.
you saw gender balance.
I'm saying sisters.
You say gender balance because you're sitting next to that lady. Okay. Okay. Who else? Matt, what did you see?
I saw new friends.
I saw you first because you're sitting next to 3 of them. Next.
Yeah.
Lady, what did you see?
I saw like looking away a little bit.
Okay, you saw that. Okay, I'll go to the next question. In front of you, who saw a cat? Anybody? A cat. Who saw a giraffe? And a cow? And a goat? Anybody?
No.
I said your neighbor. Who saw a tree? Did you see a tree?
No. Human being.
You saw a human being.
Yeah.
Yes. As I stand here, I'm seeing people. We call them people. I'm seeing a human being. Is that what you're seeing in me?
Yeah.
Huh? Or you're seeing anything else? Are you seeing, when you see, you look at me, am I human?
Yes.
Or a chicken? Okay, then we are closer to what we are going to talk about. We are people. Nyerere began by saying, when I see you, I'm seeing myself. And when you see me, you should be seeing yourself. Does it make sense? Yeah. When I see you, I see me. And when you see me, you are seeing yourself. I, as a human being, I see you as a human being. You are like me, although we differ in some respects. Is that true?
Yeah.
So all of you in this room, you don't see anything, you see human beings. You see people. In Swahili, we say collectively, watu, humans. Singly, mtu, an individual. Together, watu, collectively. So in this room, we are both. You sit as mtu, as a human being. And you look at me and you see yourself. I see you as human beings. And when I look at you, I'm looking at myself. So in that respect, aren't we equal, somehow equal in our humanity? Is there any argument about that? That in our humanity, when I see you, I see mtu, a human being. When you see me, you see mtu, a human being. Then what differentiates us? What differentiates me from you? Basically, nothing. So that's how Nyerere started. I don't know when, that binadamu wote, all people, all human beings are human beings and therefore equal in their humanity. Logically. We agree? We don't. When we discuss, we'll find out whether that is true or not true. As human beings, and then he went further to say, all human beings, people in the world, are my brethren. You are my sister. I am your brother. You are my brother. I could be your uncle. I am your old man. I could be your cousin. I could also be your father. So in this room, there are people, biologically, they are not my children, but by age, I could say, Mwanangu. That's my son or my what? My daughter. Oh, mzee mwenzangu, my fellow elder, like Matt, I think is very close to me, behind me. And it will be a privilege to have him around because he's younger than myself and therefore able to support me more. And he thinks I'm useful because he can learn then from whatever experience I have accumulated. And that's how I relate to Professor Shivji. When I see him, I joke. I say, why have you lost your hair? Are you looking at Professor Shivji? He had very good hair. when I met him when he was young, when he was coming to talk to Mwalimu, I was there to facilitate his coming to talk to Mwalimu. He was young and energetic. It's still today, the same today. Very young and energetic. So when he stands here, you see. So that is where we start. That's where Mwalimu started. But he went further. That kind of saying, when I see you, I see myself. And when you see me, you see yourself. It's not just a statement. It is a fundamental statement. It's a belief. It's a belief. And therefore, when you look at your neighbor, do you believe that he's a human being like yourself? It's a serious concept. It's a belief. So when you be interacting outside there, it's not joking, you are interacting with people, and it's a belief. How they behave, what they say, what they talk, how they relate. When you will see some talking two, some will be standing alone, some will be three. Those are behavior relationship. They explain humanity, complex and more. So in our individuality, we are very complex. I don't know you. So as a leader, Mwalimu used to say, he believed in the equality of human beings, but also he believed there must be someone who put him there. Who is that someone? Who is that someone? If I ask a Kikuyu, is there a Kikuyu here? No. Somebody from Kenya? No, from Tanzania? I come from a tribe called Wazanaki, like Mwalimu. So, say, who put you here? I will say, Erioba. That means the sun put me here. But it's much more than just the sun. Actually, we say the sun because we see it. But actually something more. We don't know. These days we call God. Mwalimu was a believer in his God. A serious believer. So every day, he believed that you, I see, and I say I see myself, put there by God, and me the same. But then, how do you relate every day? So because he was president, he goes to church every morning at 6:30. Head of state with motorized, And one day we asked him, one of my colleagues at breakfast, I said, why do you bother us every day going to church every morning? He said, we have to wake up very early. We said that because we could talk to him. He was a very simple person. He said, no, I'm afraid of these people. They don't know me. But I also don't know them. But they've said I should be their leader. And I agreed to leave them. These human beings, I don't know them. They don't know me. So I must every day go to he who put us, all of us there, to say, can you reconcile us today in our relationships? So we finish the day, we start in peace, in unity, and we finish the day in peace, in unity, in harmony, and in happiness. That was the belief in God and in his fellow human being. So to Mwalimu, let's go back now to Ujamaa. This definition, that's the foundation. It is about people. We are talking about ourselves. Ujamaa is a word that explains us. To say, who are we? What are we? How do we relate to one another? And beyond us, how do we relate to whoever put us there? And the last question, we all don't know. So I'll tell you what Mwalimu says. If you relate something and then I relate something, but we all don't know, I'm not going to interfere with what you have seen beyond yourself, because here you see him. Beyond that, you don't see. And whatever you see beyond that is your business. So that's what Ujamaa means. It's about us. No more, no less. It's about you. Now, when you say I, what exactly do you mean?
Myself.
I, Joseph Butiku. That's the name. And you normally say, I, Professor Shivji, I'm the professor. What exactly do you mean?
Confident.
First and foremost, you mean you are human.
Yeah.
You are given a name, you are a human being. That must be recognized and acknowledged in all respects by the others. If it is not, then there is a conflict. So it's all human. I am so. That must be recognized. So you want recognition, you want respect, you want freedom, you want to be cared, you want to be served. You serve yourself, but also you want to be served. You want to be free. You don't want to lose your life. Nor do you want to lose your computer, your property. Who wants to lose his computer? You don't want to lose your kettle. But more, Matt, you don't want to lose your land. That is a more fundamental thing. You don't want to lose your land to anybody. And you're not going to allow anybody to take your land where you're standing. So you begin to see areas of relationship as you and me that defines a relationship, which will give a name to it. So when you say Ujamaa, means you and all that you represent. It means me and all that it represents. It means a relationship. And it's the same with Ubuntu. So those researchers, if you've looked at the history of Ubuntu, you talk about it academically here. But there's a root from people, even beyond you. So who was the first to talk about Ubuntu? When you are born, you are born a Mutu. Yeah, it's a birthright. Utu, you are born with it. You're not born a goat. You are born a human being. So from time memorial, people were there. their qualification, a human being, it was there. That's what you are born. You are born a human being. And the relationship is there. The relationship. In simple terms, there are some people these days say, I am who I am because you were there. Otherwise, it means nothing because it has to relate. You have to relate to something else. So when you are human, you relate to your next person. So it's not it's both a complicated word, ujamaa. So Mwalimu, one day, a woman asked him, what do you mean by ujamaa? Or he said, oh, ujamaa, you just go back to your home. Go back to your home. Look at yourself in the house. Look at your husband. Look at your children. Look at the uncles come to visit you and your grandmother. And then see how you live in that community. That kind of relationship is ujamaa. Simple. Simple. Simply said, how people live. In the beginning is the family. You are one, she is one. When you pair, you see, we share our origin, a little bit of fluid, a little bit of fluid. The combination, you are there. In the combination, I'm here. So that's how we start. Is there any argument about that one? No. And that's what Ubuntu also means. I'm making it very simple because I'm sit down. That's what it all means. Concepts about us. So if you went to the Zulu tribe, they will be talking about it. In Zambia, when I was in Zambia, that's the first time I heard the late President Kaunda talking about Joseph. Ubuntu, I'm talking to Julius. They were trying to define, coming out of colonialism, so they want to define their society, to say something that will bring them all together. Because in Zambia, how many tribes? Yeah, but how many families? Plenty. In Tanzania now, we have 14 point something families, households. That's a lot. So when you say 62 million people in Tanzania, but from where? From your family, from your family. The collection together, that makes Kenya. That makes Zambia. That makes Tanzania. It's you and your families. And that's it. So in that family, how do you live there? Do you deny your child food? No. Do you beat your wife every day? You are laughing because some people do. But also some women do. Don't you respect your children? They are talking about watoto, tulea watoto. The lady was talking about tulea watoto and about tulea watoto, how to bring children to Zanzibar. And when she was talking, I was asking myself, what did the parents say? Because in an effort to, when you and I, and you have an offspring, what is your vision? What do you want to do? You want to mold somehow the character of that individual to be you. That's the whole process of bringing up children. Bring up. You can also bring me up. Say, the elders don't behave like that. You talk too much, you're there. That's what they do. They talk too much. So Mwalimu says, tells this woman, you go and Ujamaa is there. But Ujamaa is here. You are Ujamaa in this house. But then, so Ujamaa and Ubuntu exactly the same. In meaning the same. In concept. It's about people. Very simple. Practice, these are words used by Zulu. They say Ubuntu, Umuntu, Utu. Wazanaki, we say Omutu, Abatu. Omutu, me, enye ni mutu. Au ni mutu. So when I'm relating to say, I say, Awu ni mutu. You are human. And then I also say, enye ni mutu. I'm human. And then I go further. Lakini Nsuka, respect me. You see, these are words are there. Nsuka, respect me. Those words are everywhere. Usinitukane, don't abuse me. Usinidharau. Usinichukie, don't hate me. In all these languages, in all of you, these languages are there to explain humanity and a relationship. Humanity, relationship. It becomes complicated when you come to resources, land. Who can live without standing on a piece of land? Nobody. So, when it comes to its use, why do you want to grab more than the others? These are simple questions. Why do you want to grab all the land from the others? Why aren't you trying to grab air from the rest? We all have noses. Yeah. Whose nose is so selfish? You want to use all the air in this room? No, every nose has the right to breathe in and breathe out. But when it comes to eating rice, why do you want to grab all the rice? But in a family, if a child tries to grab all the rice, you will say that's not good behavior. Won't you say so? You say that's greed. Don't be that. When you become minister, and now you grab all the land, is that greed? Yeah, greed is part of a human character. Now you have to tell me, you professors, why are people greedy? I think Shivji will tell us, why are people greedy? Because that's the issue. I'm human, you're human, then I want to grab everything. And to take more than you. The explanation, you say, oh, I'm a very intelligent man. I'm the most intelligent, more intelligent than you. But I say, but you're human like me. You say, yes, but I'm more human than yourself. Then the insult starts there, and the conflict starts there. When you say in your relationship, you are a better human, more qualified than the rest, then that's the conflict situation. Peace is lost from there. And when peace is lost, these other concepts now come in. Pan-Africanism. Because you have to organize when you can't do it one. If there is a group like they were colonialists, you want to come to get rid of colonialism, then you organize, you become a political party, and you get nationalism, a national party. You don't want even to become just a Kikuyu. In Tanzania, we are 126 tribes. Mwalimu wanted those groups in one group, all those people form a group become stronger. You have a stronger voice and greater influence, and therefore more power. Even when you are not armed, you are just walking and protesting. Somebody with a gun in a bush somewhere will be against square because you are many. So you organize. So we organize in political parties, but we gave them names. TANU in Kenya, KANU in Tanzania. These days in Kenya, even the names were forgotten. Tanzania, we still have, TANU is gone, we now have CCM. When my child or my daughter forms one, I don't know what she's going to call it, maybe something else, because people are changing. They are changing relationships. So we organize. And then in a bigger way, we organize at a higher level. We say Pan-Africanist. We want to bring even more people together. So in Tanzania, Kaunda and Mwalimu and somebody, they set in Mbeya, a location in Mbeya, to organize a Pan-African group to have a greater voice to address their fellow human beings who were denying them their humanity. And they wanted to be free and independent and decide on their own affairs. So when they refused, they met first in Mbeya and then in Mwanza, but then there is a history. Somebody was telling us this started years back when people are organizing for freedom or for whatever you want, and the others are denying it. Then you organize, you get yourself in groups, and you give them names. Now this one is bigger. Today we organize to get even the Africans who were sold in slavery. In slavery, through slave trade, they went to America. They are scattered all over. Some are in America, some where are they? Some in Mexico, some in Brazil. In Latin America, where do you have more black people? Is it in Brazil? Brazil. If you go there, I went there once and hey, all these people, if I look at their noses, they are just like me. Some of them have big noses like me, some of them very big ears. And that's what I see the Africans from America. They are tall and so, but also the history tells, because the weak were not being taken the stronger. The weak were just thrown in water because they're not useful. So when they prove themselves, they are big. So then you say Pan-Africanism. Today, Pan-Africanism is a concept which also we want to come home. We want some of them that they say we want to come home. It's a Pan-Africanist. We want to be free in those days. It was Pan-African. It was something more than yourself. You see, bigger than yourself. But professors, they know how to give labels to this kind of life. So maybe I should end there and say, now, what is the world today? Maybe I say something about Ujamaa and the failure. If I go to the failure, the way I've studied, are you failures? No. Who is a failure? Tanzania cannot be a failure. Otherwise, would you come here to say, oh, we are going to Tanzania? They are very united. They are very peaceful. Socially, they are very good. You see? They share all those characteristics which you talk about in Tanzania. Is it equals failure? Oh. And success of humanity is relative. Depends upon how you use your head. And so it's not failure. I think he said it. Trying to do it, to live like a human being, is a most complicated process. And when you have been dominated by others and told that you are not what you are less than I am, if that is the doctrine, then that defines the failure. Actually, who's the failure? The failure is the one who propagates this idea that you are less human than I am. That's the failed person. He's a human being. He doesn't realize that he is. The biggest failure in our humanity, when you don't acknowledge humanity of other people. That's our biggest failure. And that's what the world is today. Divided between what we call developed and developing. Divided between the poor and the rich. Divided racially. If you can, inside countries, divided racially. Divided in Kenya, tribally. Some have huge chunks of land, others zero. Yes. Mwalimu Nyerere tried to organize so that, to avoid that. So if you start by saying that's what we am, then how do you organize yourself in relation to resources you have so that you try to live the concept? How do you organize yourself? Economically, how do you organize yourself? Socially, how do you organize yourself? If it's education, to whom do you give it to? Is it to a few? No, it must be universal. If it's health, is it to a few? No. If it's water, is it to a few? No. Why should it be to a few? But is it dressed the way we are dressed? Is this the way how if you go to the market here, the way we are dressed here, nicely? Are they dressed the same as us here? Maybe less, some without shoes. Can you say why? So if you're president, why should you go there with shoes and you see that the other person doesn't have shoes? And if she says, I also want shoes. Oh, why? I see you use more resources than myself. That's why I don't have shoes. Is she or is he wrong? Do you club him or her? No. So that's the world today. So we are organizing again. There's these groups, non-aligned movement, group of 77, the concept Pan-Africanism. We want to come home, and we say no. You are not Tanzanian. You can't come here. But even in Kenya, you say you are not a Tanzanian. You can't come here, and we make it even worse. What do we say, Professor Shivji? If a Luo crosses from Nairobi to Kenya and he's caught, he doesn't have this certificate that he's a Tanzanian, you say he's haram. What is haram? Is it a desirable? Undesirable? Yeah. What is haram in English? Haram? Illegal. No, it's more. Haram is a negative, it's bad.
Abomination.
So a Kenyan from there is a Luo, and another Luo visiting a friend here, or wanting to go to Malawi to go stay there. Haram. Why? Because there is a line which was drawn by some human beings, and those lines were inherited, and now there are countries, you see, small boxes of human beings living here and there. And when you move like that in the world, you say no. So today, if I want to go to the United States, it's hell. That's why I have to queue up, even in rain, behind the American embassy. Yeah. This powerful nation, I have to queue up behind it. They've not even put a shelter there. We don't deserve shelters, you see, and they don't want you to go there. You see, somebody was even trying to build a wall between was it
Mexico.
Yeah, His Excellency is also, and he's also excellent. He wants to build a wall to keep other people outside. Okay, so that's not a socialist attitude. It's not a Ujamaa attitude. they say it's capitalism, but it's not, because capitalism also, I may be wrong. We talk about human capital, isn't it you and me? And physical capital, is it physical capital? Economists, human capital, and then what's the other capital? Outside there, the trees, the land we see. Natural. If you combine the two, your head and the outside, those are two capitals. Human capital, natural capital. If you combine the two, you get this chair. You get the chair, you get the table. You get the plane. You see, you get the ship, these boats. But also, you get the tank, which kills. That's human capital. Now, is that bad? Is you being a capital, is it bad? No. It is when it is used. Yeah. So we are told capitalism is bad. It is not. The use of capital, you cannot develop or change without using capital. It is only when it is misused, when it becomes bad. And in this world, that's what it is now. Humanity is being denied to some, being accepted to others. Capital is denied to some. I think I've tried to explain what it all means. It's about you. It's about me. It's about us. So that's why Mwalimu says socialism is just a relationship between people. And it has nothing to do with the misuse of capital. Capital is supposed to serve human beings, to serve humanity. Your head is supposed to be organized to save the others. And when you use other things outside, the purpose is the same. But then how do you manage greed? Thank you very much.
Asante sana, Mr. Butiku, especially for the wise words for taking us down that historical path and reminding us that in this day and age, what is it that must be done? I'll invite my co-moderator, Alieu, to welcome Professor Issa.
Thank you very much, Mzee. That was a whirlwind of humanisms and being human and human. Speaking in that, I have an official bio of Mwalimu Shivji here, but as all things official, they're very not what you really want to hear. So I will do a little introduction from a personal level, and then I will read the bio. So Issa Shivji comes from a great humanist tradition, which is otherwise known as Marxism, and also Pan-Africanism, which I think is best encapsulated in the words of, there's an 18th century poet called Akbar al-Abadi, I think from India then, yeah, because Pakistan, who said, we were a people and through great struggle we became human. And, Shivji exists in that tradition, that same thing that Cabral would say later, which is Amilcar Cabral of Guinea-Bissau, to rehumanize the African, to enter the African back into history. So Dr. Shivji, who has been in that tradition, hailing back in the 60s, 70s, from the University of Dar es Salaam up to our time, and has been consistent. And for us who come from the sort of the left or the progressive movement, who are young people, have been greatly influenced by Mwalimu Shivji in his works, in his speeches, and that just goes on to show that you can be an intellectual, but you can be an intellectual from below. And you can be an intellectual for the many, for the majority, for those who are hidden out of history, and to unearth those, to become an archaeologist for the hidden of history. And, this, I think that is very important that we remember that you can still be an academic, you can still be an intellectual, and still have such a deep impact on the everyday life of the African masses. And Dr. Shivji exemplifies that. And another thing is how he exemplifies when Walter Rodney eulogized C.L.R. James, that because we know how people age and the conservatism that comes with age, that James was able to live to 88 years and he never left the radical struggle that he began when he was in his 20s. And Shivji is 77 this year and has stayed true to that radical trajectory. And so I just wanted to say that as a by the way. I have a short bio here. Mwalimu didn't know that this exists as a physical copy, but it was printed. And there are some copies around on the continent. Issa Shivji is Professor Emeritus in the School of Law at the University of Salaam, Tanzania. He's a retired professor of public law and the first incumbent of the Julius Nyerere Professorial Chair in Pan-African Studies at the same institution. In 1991, he led the Presidential Commission of Inquiry into Land Matters, which made a comprehensive report on land reform in the country. He has authored in numerous academic articles and over a dozen books, including Class Struggles in Tanzania, Silences in NGO Discourse, The Role and Future of NGOs in Africa, and a three-volume biography of Julius Nyerere called Development as Rebellion. His latest book is The Concept of Human Rights in Africa, a second edition, which will be released by AFPREA. So it's already been released. And just before he comes, can I go to that book? So a group of mostly young comrades in the movement did a reflection on Shivji's book, an essay or a pamphlet called Breaking the Silence of NGO Discourse in Africa. So there's this book which I've contributed to, and Sungu also, called Breaking the Silence on NGOs in Africa, which is a reflection on Mwalimu Shivji's book, and it came out last year. Welcome. Give it up.
By the way, biography was more interesting than the official one.
It's just for the camera.
Okay. Let me start by thanking the organizers, particularly George, for bringing me here to have a conversation with you. But not only that, but also to meet colleagues and friends, and also those people whose names I knew, like Matt Meyer, and quoted his book, but it's the first time I meet him in person. By the way, the book edited by Bill Sutherland and Matt Meyer, Guns and Gandhi in Africa, there's a very interesting conversation between Bill Sutherland and Mwalimu. And I would urge you all to read that. It's a beautiful conversation. And that's what I have been quoting again and again. I never get tired of quoting because there's some very interesting insights, there's some very interesting off-the-cuff remarks by Mwalimu on state, on violence, and so on. By the way, Matt was talking about personal, also political, and our personal traditions and history. I did tell him, I met Bill Sutherland first time, not met actually, came to know of him many years ago. I was a student in a secondary school, and these were the years of immediate after independence, when our Institute of Adult Education used to organize evening classes. Not any formal subjects, no syllabi, just those who are interested in attending. So I attended one in the evening. I think it was on current affairs. And it was led by Irene Brown, the wife of our first Attorney General, Roland Brown. And Irene was a very close friend of Mwalimu. And I attended that class. That class, now I can recall, had two participants right at the opposite pole. The eldest was Bill Sutherland, and the youngest was me from school. That's how I first came to know Bill Sutherland. This must have been in the early 60s. So, as I'm saying, it's great to meet some people in person and exchange these anecdotes and our histories. Now, Butiku has been quite greedy. He has grabbed a lot of time. so I'll try to be not as greedy as him, so that we have more time for discussion. I'll make my presentation in two parts very quickly. The first one will be a short philosophical excursion into the concept of Ujamaa and Ubuntu. And the second part will be reimagining Pan-Africanism, what you are calling new Pan-Africanism. Ujamaa and Ubuntu express a set of African values whose core concept is humanness or human dignity. Linguistically, the word Ubuntu belongs to Nguni language family, and there are variations of the same in other languages, whose general root is Ntu, which stands for human. One professor, one professional linguist and researcher argues that the entire group of Bantu languages spoken from the Cape to the Sudanic belt, the root Ntu stands for human. I am not competent to enter into further discourse on the linguistic formation of the word Ubuntu. Suffice that the term Ubuntu is rooted in the philosophical term human. At this stage, a little digression, I think, is in order. To reduce Ubuntu, or Ujamaa for that matter, to a kind of African humanism is, in my view, a modernist construction which draws heavily from Western philosophical outlook. I wouldn't like to call Ujamaa or Ubuntu as African humanism. I would therefore caution against equating Ubuntu or for that matter Ujamaa to African humanism. I think this will become clear in a moment as I start discussing Ujamaa, with which I am more familiar. the philosophical pillar for Jama is equality. This is not, and let me repeat, this is not the equality of opportunity that Americans talk about. Or it is not biological equality, expressed by the expression that all human beings are born equal. Or this is not equality before law. All these are Western modernist constructions based on the capitalist social order. In an essay written by Julius Nyerere, most probably just before independence, and this was written in Swahili and never published. We were the first one in Kawazi to publish it because we found that essay in one of his personal files in his Butiama library, the Butiku. In that essay, which I find very fascinating, Nyerere argued that the American Declaration of Independence, which starts off by saying, and I quote, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Mwalimu Nyerere says that that is not correct. And he modified the declaration to read, thus, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that although all men are not created equal, they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." A profound difference. Although all men, of course, you know the language, sex language, which is very commonly used. By the way, the Kiswahili language is sex neutral. Even Ndugu, who is my friend here, doesn't mean brother. Ndugu could be brother or could be sister. Okay. Ndugu doesn't mean brother. So Swahili language is sex neutral. Mtu, person, doesn't necessarily mean man or woman. It could be either. So, barring that, it's very interesting that Mwalimu is making a point and his correction of the American Declaration. This essay then proceeds to explain that all human beings in real life are not equal. They are not equal. They are unequal in their height and structure. They are unequal in their capacities and talents. Generally, they are unequal in many ways, and actually mentioned quite a few. Indeed, it's very interesting. In a by the way fashion, in tones, saying that it will be a bleak day if all human beings are equal, like the coin of a currency. That sentence, that remark, is actually saying Mwalimu is celebrating differences. He's celebrating differences because of all human beings are equal, like a coin. It will be a bleak day. Are we together? Yeah. He's celebrating differences. Now, of course, I did not say that difference doesn't mean divisions. Difference doesn't mean divisions. In this essay, having first argued that all human beings are not equal. Then he goes on to pose the question, why do we then say all human beings are equal? And then the second part of the essay, he starts arguing why we say all human beings are equal. You know, Mwalimu had a very kind of Socratic way of arguing. So the first part, if you look at the first part, actually, at the end of it, you are persuaded that all human beings are not equal. It's wonderful. And then the second part, he says, now, why do we say all human beings are equal? And then he says, arrives at the conclusion that all human beings are equal in the humanness. They're all equal in their humanness, in the humanity or human dignity. In a beautifully constructed passage, and this is my own translation from Swahili, and I quote, human beings are equal in the humanity. Juma and Mapachu, Juma and Majuma are not equal. But in the humanity, they do not differ in iota. Neither you, nor me, not anybody else, nor God can make Juma to be more of a human being than Majuma, or Majuma to be more of a human being than Juma. God can do what you and me and our fellow beings cannot do. God can get Juma and can make Majuma to be a different creature, better or worse than human beings. But God cannot make Juma and Majuma to be better or worse than other human beings. God can neither reduce nor increase the humanity. End of quote. A profound passage in my view. What is the meaning of equality here? And why equality is equality of humanness, not equality of opportunity, not biological equality. No, it's the equality of human dignity, humanness. Contemporaneously with this essay, that was at the same time, of which we don't know the date, because this was just a typescript. He wrote a poem in Swahili, Shairi, for the same kind of argument, again divided in two parts. In the first 8 stanzas, he shows the inequality of human beings, and then poses to ask, tell me then, where from human equality? In the next 11 stanzas, he then proceeds to argue why human beings are equal. Again, those of you who read Swahili should read this poem. We have published it in Kawazi, and I hope the Butiku and the foundation will reprint them because copies are not easily available. And those who do not speak Kiswahili, do not read Kiswahili, please learn Kiswahili to read this poem. It is so wonderful. I only got one stanza. He's giving the example to illustrate his argument. Example of water. I'll first read in Swahili to give you the flavor of the language. I hope it will attract you to learn the language. And then I'll translate it to English. Niseme maji ni maji. Niseme maji ni maji. Pengine utaelewa. Ya kunywa ya mfereji na yanayoogelewa, ya umande na theluji, ya mvua Mito, maziwa asili yake ni hewa, hayapitani umaji. The translation of that quote is, if I say water is water, you may understand. Water to drink, water to shower. Of dew and snow, of rain, rivers, lakes. Its ancestry is air. It does not differ in its wateriness. I've translated umaji into wateriness, although I think it doesn't capture the beautiful sense of umaji. Now, many Western writers writing on Nyerere's concept of equality have totally missed the philosophical profoundness of Nyerere's concept. They have tended to assimilate it in the notion of Western concept of equality. Nyerere's concept of equality, based on human dignity, imports as its integral part the notion of equity. Anything that offends human dignity is inequitable. Poverty and disease offend human dignity. So do oppression, exploitation, unfreedom, and torture. Needless to say, colonialism and imperialism are gross violations of human dignity. Thus, Nyerere had no problem in arriving at his conception of socialism from his basic philosophical foundations. He once remarked that, to quote, no one who qualifies his belief in the equality of men is really a socialist. No one who qualifies equality can be a socialist. Keep that in mind. It's important because even socialists forget that very often, particularly when they come into power. Yes. The Butiku, when they come into power, so when you're asking the question, what do you see in me? Human being. But I said, you also see in you human being with power. So that's different. Okay? Because power makes human beings unequal. Right? It offends human dignity. I would like to make a few remarks on equality of rights, equal treatment, the terms that are commonly used in the mainstream discourse. There are two other notions, these are two other notions whose effect is to hide and disguise social inequality and inequities of the capitalist social order. As one philosopher has observed, equality among unequals is inequitable. Equality among unequals is inequitable. I would argue that the concepts of equal rights and equal treatment are profoundly unjust. You cannot give equal treatment or equal rights to two unequal individuals and say it is just, or that they are treated equally. Again, borrowing from Mwalimu Nyerere, giving 10 acres of land equally to a one-armed person and a two-armed person is not just treatment. It may look like equal treatment because you're both given them 10 acres of land, but it's unjust. Justice demands an unequal treatment. Justice demands an unequal treatment, not an equal treatment. Now, this may sound obvious when it's said, but when it comes to real life, in our daily discourse, we take this as common sense. Okay, equality means equal treatment. We take it as common sense. No one will argue against it. But it is very unjust. Why it is unjust? Because you are imposing equality on human beings who are unequal. Okay? And that is why I keep saying that when you talk about equal treatment, equality of rights, which is a common parlance of the capitalist social order, actually it hides. It's very unjust because it hides real inequality. Again, sometimes you talk about affirmative action, like in the case of women. Okay? Affirmative action is to correct historical injustice, not the unjustness of the social system itself. All right? I'll stop there with the first part. Let me go now to the second part of my presentation, reimagining Pan-Africanism. The issue that I want to deal with in a very summary fashion is how do we reimagine Pan-Africanism in the current era of rampant imperialism and voracious capitalist social order. I want to suggest that the bedrock of African values of Ubuntu and Ujamaa is summed up in the first part, provides us both a point of departure and a handle to construct our reimagination of Pan-Africanism. Over 2 centuries of struggles of global Africans has indeed been a struggle for recognition of the human dignity and humanness. The last 5 or so centuries of the development of capitalism and its plunder of African lives and livelihoods has been justified, rationalized, and legitimized by ideologies denying dignity and humanity to African people. Keep that in mind. It's easily said, but we see it in front of our eyes. You cannot treat another human being unequally, torture, oppress, unless you deny that human being, her humanity. Right? You see that? This is not historical, it is present. Therefore, Zionists have to call Palestinians animals. Right? To be able to kill them. To be able to commit the genocide. You have to first deny them their humanity. You first to argue, as Butiku was saying, that you are a better human being than the other. Throughout history, such oppressions have called human beings what? 2-legged animals. Don't forget that. Don't forget that. Because human beings have to construct something first in consciousness before they act. This is now very well known. And for the purpose of this audience, I shall not rehearse it. I will assert, though, that racism is inherent in the capitalist imperialist system. And that some African scholars have even theorized it as a system of racial capitalism. Keep that in mind. Racism is not simply kind of some kind of superstructure. It is actually inherent. Read the history. To be able to do what the development capitalism did to other people was that first they had to construct racial. Right? You remember those arguments about the unequal human brain and so on and so forth? Lots of them, right? You have to first construct. And that you could justify where appropriate by the color of the skin, by the shape of the noses, by the hair, and where the color of the skin is the same, you find other ways. Dirty Irish, remember? Colonizing Irish people. In this sense, then, the Pan-African struggle for human dignity and human freedom continues unabated. The Pan-African struggle against suppression did not begin with colonialism. Dr. Moses did not begin with colonialism. It is centuries old. The Haitian Revolution. We tend to forget the first African Revolution. The Maroon communities, the freed slaves, and those slaves who ran away, they formed Maroon communities with their own republics. It was part of the struggle. This struggle has very long. Colonialism, actually, in our case, in Africa, has only been a short period. It's only been a short period, 70 years, 75 years. Throughout those 5 centuries of development of capitalism, African people have gone through this. No other continent experienced the inhuman, barbarous slave trade. Right? Where human beings are turned into commodities, into charities. I'm trained as a lawyer, although I'm very disloyal to law. You will find old cases with arguments by courts where the slaves are sold. Okay? And because they don't have souls, they can be treated as chattel. There are cases, actually, in records, with arguments. Well, recently, you must have seen some photos going around of how, I think, was it the Germans who took African boy and put them in a zoo to come to work? Yeah. I mean, that is not long ago. It's not been not long ago. Now we tend to forget that because we are very peaceful people. No, where there is violence, you cannot be peaceful. You cannot put a neck, you cannot put your knee on my neck and then ask me to be peaceful. Are we together? The peace builders and the peace conferences, please don't be offended. But that's the truth. That's the truth. You cannot have peace where there is injustice. You cannot have peace where there is injustice.
No peace, no justice.
People will definitely struggle against injustice. If you want peace, build a just social order. And that's what we should be struggling for. Now, why I'm saying that what we need is a global outlook for global Africa and a global ideology from which can emanate global politics of Pan-African struggle. And in my view, that outlook and ideology is Pan-Africanism. We need to reclaim Pan-Africanism. This is particularly addressing my younger Ndugu, we need to reclaim Pan-Africanism. Don't leave it in the hands of Wazir, like the Butiku and me. You young people, reclaim Pan-Africanism. We need to reimagine it and reinvigorate it. More than anything else, we have to make Pan-Africanism a category of intellectual thought, which is another way of saying that we need to theorize Pan-Africanism as a revolutionary theory. Right? Amilcar Cabral taught us, without revolutionary theory, there cannot be successful revolution. There cannot be successful Pan-Africanism without a revolutionary Pan-Africanist theory. In saying this, I am not breaking new ground. Our ancestors, through their struggles, suffering, songs and dances, has left us a rich heritage from which to learn and be inspired. Unlike many other pans, which have not only been defeated but disappeared, Pan-Africanism may have been temporarily defeated, but it refused to disappear. It is one pan which still exists, which still strikes a chord in African people. The Pan-African sentiment is still quite strong on the continent. It's still strong on the continent. And this is across age groups, across demographics. In other words, we need to resurrect Pan-Africanism, not like a phantom or a phoenix, but like a rising African sun to herald a new epoch. To begin with, I suggest several paradigmatic shifts to help us towards re-theorizing Pan-Africanism. First, a shift from locating Pan-Africanism on a geographical plane to rooting it in social process or social space. The dominant Pan-Africanist discourse tends to talk about African countries, African nation states, and the African continent, while Africans outside the continent are characterized as a diaspora. I don't like it. And this discourse gets reinforced in post-colonial Africa with the gaining of independence and consolidation of African states. You know, because at the end of the day, the paradigm that governs independence and state sovereignty is, of course, based on European history and the Westphalian doctrines of state and sovereignty. And it lies at the base of nationalism in Africa, including its appropriation by states which use it to legitimize the rule of new governing and ruling classes. Variants of nationalist ideologies are also used by both left and right populisms. Beware of nationalism. The radical nationalisms, but they're also very reactionary rightist nationalisms, populist nationalism, demagogic nationalisms. You see it all over being resurrected. And these nationalisms are not progressive. They may use populist language, but actually very reactionary. In this discourse, Pan-Africanism is pushed to the back burner. Instead, we talk about African unity. Oh, very nice, African unity. But what unity are you talking about? We're talking about unity of African states. That's what Oyoo, that's what AU is, right? Unity of African states. Now, the implication of the shift I'm suggesting from the geographical space to social space is that instead of talking about the unity of states, we talk about the solidarity of people. We talk about solidarity of people. Second, related to the first shift, we need a paradigmatic shift from state-centric to people-centric Pan-Africanism. Historically, Pan-Africanism as an ideology and a world outlook was socially anchored in the struggles of African people for human freedom. Thus, perforce, it was people-centered. The people-based Pan-Africanism birthed African territorial nationalism, not the other way around. We often forget it. And I get very upset when people compare Pan-Africanism with European unity. Absolutely, there is no analogy. One is the unity of the imperialist states. In our case, our nationalism, Tanzanianness, Ghanaian, it was born of Pan-Africanism. The first generation nationalist leaders, including people like Hastings Banda, were Pan-Africanists. They were all Pan-Africanists. Albert Luthuli, even Tom Mboya, Jomo Kenyatta, they were Pan-Africanists. So in our case, this is very different. Our nationalism was born of Pan-Africanism. And that was the great contribution of Kwame Nkrumah. He tried to keep the torch of Pan-Africanism burning even after Ghana's independence. He did not succeed. He did. And once independence was attained, and our new elites started consolidating the states in their power, the People's Project, which was Pan-Africanism, was hijacked. And in my view, this hijacking has been so successful that many of our genuine Pan-Africanists have internalized it, justifying statist Pan-Africanism on grounds of pragmatism and political realism. Undoubtedly, the shift from state-centric to people-centric Pan-Africanism will have to have a dialectic relationship with the social practice of our people and their struggles, who by the way continue to defy artificially created state boundaries, as the Butiku would say. We have Maasai community, right? Here, Arusha and so on. And there's Maasai community across the border in Kenya. Okay? Every 7 years, there is a hill here, mountain, where the Maasai community meets for 7 days to worship. Maasais come from Kenya as well. You ask them for passport, they don't understand this. They all meet as come and worship. They defy boundaries. And this is true of West Africa and so on and so forth. This will be the practice because what Butiku was saying, it's artificial created boundaries. You know? The third shift I'm suggesting is from the concept of individual being to the concept of social being. The concept of the abstracted individual has been the foundation of bourgeois outlook, ideology, and jurisprudence. This is the foundation of the theory of rights in bourgeois law. It is the individual that rights and freedoms inherit. So what you do, you first abstract the individual from the social being. But there is no such thing as individual being. There is no Robinson Crusoe. Have you ever heard of Robinson Crusoe except in fiction? No, there's no Robinson Crusoe. Human is a social being. So you have to first abstract the individual being from social being. And then, to that individual being, the abstracted individual being, you attribute rights. Okay? You attribute freedoms. So, I am saying that once you make that shift from individual being to social being, then you also make a shift from the language of human rights to human dignity. And a shift from humanitarianism to humanness follows. Now, human rights, humanitarianism, very common. Constantly talk about it, right? Humanist intervention, humanitarian intervention. Intervention is about a humanitarian intervention, right? You know, statement. Intervention is about a humanitarian intervention. So you have to make that shift from human rights to human dignity and from humanitarianism to humanness. Humanitarianism is at best an act of charity. At best, an act of charity. Humanness, by definition, is an act of solidarity. Charity signifies inequality between the giver and the recipient. Humanness signifies fellowship. Finally, a number of political and ideological perspectives follow from the paradigmatic shifts I am suggesting. First and foremost, Pan-Africanism in its politics must be thoroughly, consistently, and audaciously anti-imperialist. And I make no apology for saying that.
Yes.
I know it has become a four-letter word these days. Okay, if you want to sound respectable, and get being celebrated in Western circles, you don't use the word like imperialism. It's a four-letter word. No. I am saying time has come where we have to audaciously talk about anti-imperialism. Centuries were struggled with African people against the plunder and pillage of the resources and their lives has been anti-imperialist. Let's not forget that. And particularly today, when imperialism is on the brink of committing genocide, how long are you going to be apologetic about it? In front of our eyes. So, our reimagined Pan-Africanism has to be thoroughly, consistently, and audaciously anti-imperialist. Time for making apologies, time for trying to accommodate, trying to be nice are gone. They cannot be compromised with imperialism. Secondly, Pan-Africanism in its theory and strategy must be anti-capitalist. The Butiku, there is no good and bad capitalism. There is no such thing. Capitalism is based on expropriation of the people. Full stop. I cannot imagine a capitalist Pan-Africanism or an imperialist Pan-Africanism. Although tempted, I should not go further to say that Pan-Africanism must be socialist. I'm not here to dish out blueprints. That will be presumptuous. Alternatives will emerge in the very course of reimagining Pan-Africanism and actually existing struggles of our people. Just as Marx said, and I quote, if you have no business with the construction of the future or with organizing it for all time, there can still be no doubt about the task confronting us at present, the ruthless criticism of the existing order. Ruthless in that it is shrink neither from its own discoveries nor from conflict with the power status. And stop. End of quote. Now I know my address will immediately attract the level of utopianism and daydreaming. Pragmatists and realists will tell me, oh, no, you're not being realist, Professor. This is utopia. But all struggles for freedom start with utopias. The fight for revolutionary fight is precisely a fight against impossible. You first dream of freedom before fighting for it. Human beings first conceive before acting. Remember the famous quote of Martin Luther King about my dream? Yeah? Human beings first dream of freedom. You first construct a utopia. In this, I only suggested the first steps in reconceptualizing Pan-Africanism. In short, I'm saying revolutionize thought first before thinking of revolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mwalimu. I think it's very clear the task that has been laid squarely on us at this point. I hope we recognize that these are not speeches for speech's sake, that we are invigorated and we are ready to struggle and to create and construct those utopias that will create the newness. Because if we don't, it's like Eduardo Galeano used to say, history doesn't say goodbye, it only says see you later. So we don't want to see you later. We need to create new histories and new worlds. With that said, we will have a photo shoot, a photo session, a group photo outside, and then lunch. But I think soon we might want to do some logistical things.
I think we'll break for lunch, and then we'll come back at 3 p.m. And as was mentioned earlier, we have 3 sessions in the afternoon for the workshops and smaller discussions. This venue is not indicated. By the time you come back, they'll be indicated. But I think in the other sheet of paper, they already might be indicated. I think that's all from me for now. And hopefully this is the beginning of really interesting discussions and interesting engagements and interesting thoughts and interesting connections that help move us forward. Thank you. Where's the photo session?
Where's the photo going to be?
Oh, outside. Okay. And for those who, it's just outside the room. And for those who arrived this morning, who do not know where the dining area is, I think if you just follow the largest group you see, most people will be going to the eating area. Thank you.
Matt, turn that off. Yeah, 1 second. Oh, why is the battery running low? Yeah, I have to end the live stream because we're still live.
I'm just wondering whether. Sorry.
Just have to end the live